Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation, and it's really a pleasure to come back. I was here at Stanford for my master's many years ago. I won't say how many years, but it's really fun to be back and see everything. When Maya invited me to give this talk, I was actually hesitant because I don't really think about open educational resources very much, but it's been fascinating to hear everything. And so what you're going to hear is kind of one narrow perspective on my experience in providing open educational resources. So I'm not sure if do I click this to, how do I advance the slides? Oh, the green, oh, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to kind of give you my story here of how I got involved in this. So back in 2011, I was a PhD student at Brown University in applied math. And I had this opportunity to teach 2 courses as a primary instructor, machine learning and information theory in the summer and the fall. And I saw this TED Talk by Sal Khan, and it just blew me away. So he was talking about his experience creating Khan Academy, and I just loved the idea of it. And I had had a great experience with MIT OpenCourseWare, especially Gil Strang's video lectures on linear algebra. And so I decided I was going to try to flip the classroom with these courses that I was teaching and create some videos, put them on YouTube, have the students watch the videos outside of class, and then I could focus in class on doing exercises and discussion and so forth. So, and I just thought, you know, I'll make these videos and I'll put them out there. And if they're useful to other people, then that's great. And so I was really my goal was basically to create Khan Academy style videos, but on kind of more advanced mathematical and statistics concepts. So from my perspective, you know, this was my view. You know, I had my screen, my pen tablet, and my microphone, and I just started making videos, right? So, and this is kind of what it looked like this Blackboard style, just writing and speaking. And I made more videos, lots of videos. And I just posted them on YouTube. And over 7 months, I made 262 videos, uploaded them to what I call the Mathematical Monk channel on YouTube. And I used them in my classes. And then I didn't really do anything with it after that. I just let it kind of ride. And today there's 93,000 subscribers to the channel and over 10 million views to date. It's been a generally positive response. I've had lots of people come up to me and tell me they appreciated the videos. Just the 3 most recent comments, I just looked on the channel and, you know, kind of scrolled through the comments. The most recent 3, I think, are kind of representative. It helped me finally understand this method. Thank you so much. We of the present really do stand on the achievements of the past. Thank you. Please come back. Right? So it's very tempting. It's very tempting. And there was a range of feedback as well, you know, from detailed technical suggestions. You don't need to factor both of them, as Schur did in his paper in 1911. Right? Okay. Right. Didn't know about that. Okay. To, you know, constructive feedback, constructive criticism. They like them. This was very confusing. Some very adamant suggestions. Somewhat more negative feedback. And then, you know, potentially soul-crushing feedback that if I had seen early on, I probably would never have continued. But it's all good. And so something that was a little bit maybe different or unusual about what I did was that I made the videos completely anonymously. You know, and so I didn't put my name on the channel, didn't put a link to who I was. And, you know, and so there's kind of some mystery about who was creating the videos. So why did I make them anonymously? Well, as a PhD student, it was very simple. I was afraid, right? You know, if I put stuff out there and it was wrong or people hated it, you know, then I wouldn't be embarrassed because, you know, my name wasn't associated with it. I was kind of lazy, you know. I really didn't want to get a lot of people asking me questions and emailing me asking for help. And I had no idea how Brown would feel about it, right? I'm putting this stuff out for free and they're paying me to teach. Like, is that going to be an issue? I don't know. Turns out they loved it and they gave me a teaching award, which was awesome. And then later it kind of became fun to keep it anonymous. And it became like this kind of interesting experience where, people would find out that I was the one who created the videos. And then it was like this kind of cool realization when I would meet people. But I did create a link from my webpage to the channel so people could find out who created them if they really wanted to. So I'm going to show you I'm a statistician, so I have to show you some statistics and numbers. So what were people watching on the channel? These are the top 10 most watched videos on the channel. And so machine learning overview and applications, hidden Markov models, k-nearest neighbors, expectation maximization, measure theory, or why measure theory, and so forth. And so the kind of theme here is that these were the kind of introductory videos. They're like the first video introducing a concept. And that could be maybe because that's the natural place to start in any given thing. You start with the first one, and then there's some attrition as you go along. But I thought that was interesting to see. And then looking over time, so starting back in 2011, and then weekly totals of the top 5 most watched videos. So the most watched video, the machine learning overview and applications, is the blue line, and it's kind of trends along some maybe ups and downs, and a few very noticeable spikes. It spiked on 3 specific dates where there was just many, many more views than other dates. And honestly, I have no idea what happened on those dates. So if anybody knows how to probe the YouTube sort of analytics engine to figure that out, I would be interested. But it must have been somebody mentioned it or linked to it, and then there was a big influx of people on those particular days. And totaling over all the videos on the channel over time. So these are the weekly totals. And, when you look at this, you see a very clear oscillation, which correlates very strongly with the semester, right? So you see a dip in view counts during summer break and winter break. And you can actually see the winter break dip is much shorter, right? It's probably winter break, and then people start the semester again. The summer break is a little bit longer. All right. The other trend you see here is there was increasing views until 2017 and decreasing views afterwards. And I would speculate that that's probably due to increasing interest in deep learning and neural networks, which I didn't cover at all in these videos, sort of relative to traditional machine learning and statistics and information theory. Right, so it's interesting to see that the cyclical nature, and if you zoom in even further to the daily totals, this is just from 2014 to 2016, there's again an oscillation which correlates with the week, right? There's a very consistent and noticeable dip on the weekends, which is, in this case, Fridays and Saturdays, presumably because students aren't cramming for their next lesson on a Friday night or a Friday or a Saturday, whereas during the week they're watching the videos to try to figure out what the heck their instructor is talking about. So who is watching? So based on my experience with looking at the stats and the comments to the channel, it seems like a very big audience, maybe the biggest audience, is students who are studying a particular topic for a class they're taking. So they're taking a class, they don't quite understand, or they want to sort of augment what they're learning in class, and so they go online and they find a video. Another very distinct audience is self-learners, people who just want to learn the material, and they'll go through a whole bunch of videos, maybe all the videos in the series, and watch all of them. And then I think there are many casual viewers who just happen to search and find a video and watch a couple. Let's see. There we go. So So that's a little bit about the channel, and I'm going to tell you about some lessons learned for me as a, as a teacher from the experience of creating these and trying to use them, and other sort of things I've learned along the way in terms of teaching in a kind of online setting. So the first one is, I was always told it's better to be controversial than boring. So I don't know how controversial this is, but I found that flipping the classroom just didn't work for me. Right? Now, it seems to make a lot of sense, right? Lectures are largely a one-way flow of information from the instructor to the students. So why not have the students watch videos outside class, and then you can use that valuable in-person time for interactive stuff like, doing exercises, discussion, and so forth. The other thing is if they're watching the videos outside of class, they can pause, they can think about it, they can really do it at their own pace, which seems to make a lot more sense. So what's the problem? Well, in my experience, flipping doesn't work for most students. Right? Now, I think there is some percentage of students that really would thrive in a flipped classroom. Right? They would watch the videos ahead of time. This is what I found. They would be on top of things and really participate in class. But most students, their personality, for whatever reason, just doesn't fit with that model. And they just don't watch the videos ahead of class. They're busy with other classes, whatever's going on. And then in class, if you assume that they have watched the videos, they're just lost. And then they disengage. Interestingly, I think, it seems that students have kind of come to this realization, or maybe already realized it, that students prefer in-person lectures to online lectures. This is the results from a study that was done. It's, I guess, every couple years at least, in 2023 and 2025. So the green is the percentage of students who preferred an in-person sort of on-site lecture experience with the instructor and other students versus the yellow being those who preferred online from their own space. And even from 2023 to 2025, in this survey, there was an increase in those who preferred the on-site in-person experience. So, I've sort of settled on something in between, between the sort of flipped classroom and the fully in-person kind of experience. I like to present new material during lectures rather than by videos, and then incorporate in-class group exercises into the lectures, right? So I'll take time out of the lecture to have the students do that in-person activity. And then augment the lectures with lab periods with hands-on experiences, so they're getting that in person as well. And then record the lectures, put them online, so that afterwards the students can have that experience of pausing, thinking about it, going back over the video and watching it at their own pace. And this seems to work pretty well. So in Yahoo clickbait fashion, my one weird trick for boosting student engagement this is something that I found is so helpful. Doing these, one or two in-class group exercises every lecture period is something that the students really have found very valuable. So I'll give them an exercise on the lecture material, have them work for about 10 minutes in groups of 2 or 3, and then go over it afterward on the board. And this is something that I learned from doing teaching by Zoom during the COVID period. The first class I was teaching fully remotely, I just continued lecturing as normal, and it was a total disaster. Students shut off their cameras. They were totally disengaged. But when I started doing these exercises, then it became a much more interactive experience. Okay, my next sort of opinionated, maybe hopefully controversial lesson learned is that, to me, a messy blackboard can be more effective than a polished presentation. So this is what the Mathematical Monk videos look like. They're messy, my handwriting is illegible sometimes, and so forth. But it works. And so why does it work, right? So I modeled this style after the Khan Academy style. And of course, we all know the success of Khan Academy. So why is this sort of messy, handwritten style so effective? Well, I have, a few thoughts on why. One is it slows you down as an instructor, right? It forces you to think through every step at the same pace as the students, And if there's a tricky spot in this, mathematical derivation or some explanation, then it's helpful to slow down and give the students a chance to sort of think through the same thought process as you are when you're presenting it. Second, it reveals your thought process so students can better understand the logical steps that you take and things that would kind of get glossed over in a polished slide presentation. Third, it shows that you're human as an instructor. And this is so important because math and statistics can be really intimidating. So if a student can see that you as the instructor are making mistakes and getting stuck and sometimes getting confused, that's really psychologically helpful for the students to see. The same rationale applies to in-person teaching on the blackboard, not just in videos, right? But there are some additional kind of benefits, I think, to this particular style when you're making videos like I did with the YouTube channel. One is that seeing the speaker can actually be distracting. And Sal Khan talked about this, way back as well. So there's this weird kind of phenomenon, I think, which is that a disembodied voice speaking over a video is somehow more personal than seeing the instructor's face, because it's almost like the voice is inside your head. It's almost like your own voice thinking through and speaking as the viewer watching. And last, and this is something I'm going to kind of come back to later, is that it's so much easier to make content, to make videos with this very kind of crude style. Requires minimal equipment. You don't have to worry about your appearance. You don't have to polish the presentation. You just get on there and you write and you speak. Now, that's not to say that polished presentations and slides don't have their place. One time, once I taught an entire semester of machine learning in person on the blackboard, and I don't recommend that. It didn't go very well. The students were not super enthused about that approach. And I think part of the reason is that sometimes writing things out is just too slow. So for non-technical content, slides, presentations are better because students can just absorb that material much more quickly. But for things like mathematical derivations, it's better to slow it down and go to the blackboard. So for classroom teaching, I've settled on kind of, I think, is a good combination of the two. So slides for things that don't require a lot of in-depth thought, and then using the blackboard for, detailed mathematical derivations. All right. The third thing here is something that I've found to be, at least to me, I think is a really important insight, which is that impactful content doesn't have to take a lot of time to create. So when I was making these videos, I just busted them out, right? I would, take one day to plan a series of videos of 6 or 7 lectures, like on a particular topic or module, and then record them the next day. And I recorded the videos in basically one take, right? So the software I was using, I could pause and sort of collect my thoughts while recording, but I never went back and edited the videos or anything like that. I mean, partly because I didn't know how, and I didn't want to really spend the time to do that. But in retrospect, that made it possible to create a lot of videos and a lot of content much more quickly, because I didn't spend any time polishing them. Right? So, flashy videos, pretty graphics are really nice to look at and may get more views, but simple content-focused videos can be really effective and impactful for students. So, and to me, this is, I think, something, this is such an important thing because there are so many people who could put content out there and it wouldn't take a lot of time to do so, right? But it's the bar for maybe kind of what's expected in terms of having a polished presentation is high. right? But I would really like to advocate for lowering the bar in terms of the sort of appearance and the glossiness of the presentation, and focus more on getting quality content out there that might be a little more rough around the edges. All right. So what's my vision for open education resources? And I put a question mark because, I don't think about this nearly as much as, most of you. But from my kind of narrow perspective, I think there are some things where there's a lot of room for improvement. So this is the demographics in terms of the number of views by country, and this is just in my narrow slice of the world of this YouTube channel. By and large, the vast majority of views are from the United States, then India, the United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, and then there's a long tail from there, right? There's something which is exciting about this, and something which is, I think, sparks a need for some improvement, right? One is, the exciting thing is that there is a global reach, right? And that's something that I found really exciting. But I think there's an opportunity that's totally untapped, right? Here's another chart of the total views by gender, right? Vast majority, and again, this is just my narrow slice of the world, the vast majority of viewers were male, right? Maybe 17, 18% female, 1% or less unspecified, user specified. So I think there's a potential for global impact for open education resources that is not yet fully realized. And this is why, what Angela was speaking about is so important. I just put the content out there and, let people find it. But really making the effort and putting in programs to bring that content to different communities is really important for realizing the potential of open education resources. There's also a potential for reducing inequities, right? Just in that gender gap in the number of views, right? So open education has these potentials, right? But I think they're not yet realized. And that's something which, I think is a really exciting opportunity. Now, as someone who runs our master's, as the co-director of the master's programs in the biostatistics department, something I think about is, okay, well, if there's all this, free educational resources, open educational resources, are people still going to come and want to get a degree from a degree granting program? And I think the answer is yes. And part of the reason is because for most people, the in-person experience it's just essential for their motivation and their focus on the program. There are some people who are the self-learners who can just go through and learn online and will teach themselves by looking at it. But I think for most people, the in-person experience is really essential. And lastly, and this touches on kind of points 1 and 2 there, are these resources primarily being used by students who are taking classes, right, already? And if so, then, right, the impact is kind of constrained to the current educational system, right? And there's this potential for really having a much broader impact. And so what could be done to extend the reach of these resources to other populations? And that's like what Angela was talking about. So that's kind of my vision for the opportunities in the future of open education. All right, so that's it. Thank you for your attention. Happy to take any questions.
We've got time for questions. Come on up to the microphone. Maybe I'll start with one, which, so the fact that you were anonymous means like nobody knows walking up whether you're legit or not, right? So how do you, whereas if you say I'm a professor at Harvard or I'm, at Brown or whatever, they at least have some signal that you are probably legit. So do you have a feel for how that worked in terms of people realizing that your content was actually trustable and
so you mean like people watching the videos?
Yeah.
I think it's just people when they just look for resources and then it just worked for them, right? And I don't think that having a kind of like the name or the institution behind it was really important for people. I think this people just wanted to have an explanation that they understood. So I don't think the sort of legitimacy that being a Harvard professor brings was really that essential, or was something that people were looking for. I think they just wanted to understand.
Cool.
That's my impression. Yeah.
Hi, my name is JP. I have a quick question around, thank you for that presentation, it was really awesome.
Awesome.
I think I've seen some of your videos, actually.
Cool.
Have you thought about, and I know that maybe it's kind of a new thing to have like some of the English language sort of automatically get translated on the fly, right? I know that wasn't probably available when you first started, but I don't know if you've thought about that or explored on how to do that, because it might actually make that long tail much taller.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean,
Thanks.
something very noticeable about those countries is that, well, I think that's 4 of the top 5 were, predominantly English-speaking countries, right? Or at least many very, many English speakers. So, yeah, absolutely. I think that's, especially with AI now, that is such an awesome opportunity is to have content translated. Yeah, it's something I haven't looked into or tried, but absolutely. I think that's a great opportunity.
I come from Brazil and it wasn't listed, so yeah, I think there's definitely an opportunity there. A bunch of the inequality that comes from there, I think, is that we just don't have access to English content that is so broad, right? My question is like, because you kind of got famous before it was like the whole creator economy kind of like hyped, I guess. And now with AI, I guess my concern is that like so many people are putting just so many content that like even Google is not being able to index it, Okay. So like, would you kind of like, I'm just like curious into like how good information, like we say in Portuguese, like bad information flows quite rapidly, but good one takes longer, would you reframe like what you were thinking about, like maybe the time that you got famous was like a time before, like now it's harder to find good content,
Yeah, that's, I think that now with AI, it's so easy to create content. I don't know how to even think about that, honestly. It's a big problem. I mean, it's not just with content, but with all, I can think, information and what's true, what's not true. It's so hard to navigate these days. I don't think I have any real great insights into it.
Yeah, my personal view is that maybe today, like having a stamp of like where is this institution or who is the person behind it might be a bit more important.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay. We have time for more questions if anybody has one. All right, well, we will thank Jeff again.